Well, this video will be about percent. And so for starters, percent comes from Latin percentum, which means essentially out of 100. And that's what it's doing. It's always comparing things out of 100. So, you might have a question, you might wonder, what's better? 3 out of 5 or 15 out of 20. As these things are, they're kind of tricky to compare with each other. There are a variety of things that you can do, but one thing that you can do is change them so that they're both out of 100, okay? And then you can compare them to each other. And as it so happens, this one will be 60 out of 100, and this one will be 75 out of 100. So as it turns out, this one is better. So that's what the percent does, is it takes things that are different and compares them to the same thing out of 100. Okay. Another way to think about this is on a scale. So if you've got a scale, I'll do a couple of these from 0 to 1, from 0% to 100%, and then this would be the thing that you were comparing. Let's see. So a percentage, so let's say we had that 15 out of 20 was equal to 75%, so the 75% would come along here, right? And then this would be the 15 out of 20. And of course, if you turn the percentage into a decimal, it's 0.75. So let's talk a little bit more about that, right? So a minute ago, I had 15 out of 20 was equal to 75 out of 100. Okay? And there's a variety of ways that you can go about doing this. You can work with the common denominators. One thing you should be aware of, this fraction bar right here, that means divided by. Okay? And so if you want to turn this straight into a decimal, all you have to do is take your calculator and go 15 divided by 20 equals 0.75. Okay? And then to make it into a percentage, you want to either, you just want to move the decimal point over 2 places. That will be 75%. Because this 0.75 is 75 out of 100. Okay? So these are some basic ideas for percentages. If you struggle with any of these basic ideas, please let me know so we can talk about it some more. What we're going to focus on in this lesson is mainly calculations involving percentages. So let's go back to this right here, okay, where we have the 15 out of 20 is equal to 75 out of 100. So let's see here. This 15 actually looks like the word is, and that is frequently what you'll run into in doing these problems. Okay? You'll also see the word of in these problems, and then we'll also be working with a percentage. Okay? In the last assignment, we talked about proportions. You can always set up this percentage as equivalent proportions, okay? And you'll have the is over the of is equal to percent over 100. And you may have seen that before in a previous class. You may not have, but this is one of the fundamental ways that people address talking about percentages. And the is and the of frequently show up in these calculation problems that we're going to talk about. When we switch over to the word problems in the next assignment, these words have a tendency not to show up in those word problems. And it's up to you to figure out which is which. Another way to think about this is that this is the part and this is the whole. Now that can be a little bit misleading, because in some circumstances your part may end up being bigger than your whole, in which case your percentage will be bigger than 100, right? So in this scenario, our part was smaller than the whole, our percentage was less than 100%. If you take something like 25, now your part is bigger than the whole, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's the way things happen. And let's see, what would be our percentage here? 125%, I believe. Okay. And we can go ahead and set that up as a problem. Let's make that the first example problem. 25 out of 20 is x out of 100. Okay? And we're going to solve this using that same cross multiplication that we talked about with proportions. So 25 times 100 is 2500 equal to 20x. Divide on both sides by 20. And so, yeah, there's our 125%. Okay? All right. There are other ways to approach these problems, and I'll talk about that as well once we get started with the exercises. So let's take a look at those. Let's see here. All right, so we're going to focus on is over of equals percent over 100. Now, another way to approach this is you can say, let's see here, what would we do? We would take percent as a decimal, multiply it by of, and that would give us is. Okay? So in that last problem, we wanted to know what percentage of 20 was 25. Okay? So the 20 is the of, is the 25 was the is, and our percentage as a decimal we didn't know. Okay? And so what we've got here is a little equation that says 20x equals 25. Divide on both sides by 20. X is 1.25. And then we want to make that into a percentage, 125%. And we do that by moving this decimal 2 places to the right. Okay? And notice how this is very similar to the calculation we did a minute ago, except that we're missing that 100 here, and then it comes back into, because we have to turn that back into a percentage. All right, so I'll leave this up here as well, and I'll solve a bunch of these problems using both of these methods. And as we talked about the other day, anything that makes sense to you, so long as it's correct, is fine by me. If you prefer this, do it this way. If you prefer this, do it this way. And if you have other correct methods, then you can use those as well. So let's look at some problems. On the first page of the assignment, the problems are grouped, okay? And so, let's see. In the first 4 problems, we're looking for is. In the second 4 problems, we're looking for of. And in the third 4 problems, we're looking for the percent. On page 2, they're mixed up. And so you've got some decisions to make, okay? All right, so let's look at a couple of these. So problem 2 says, what is 420% of 5? What is 420% of 5? So notice right away we've got one that's got a percentage higher than 100. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. So, we'll put our question mark in there. So if we want to use this proportion method, we need to identify those pieces, right? And if we're using the proportion method, we just take the number of the percentage, 420, put it over 100. Let's see, we're saying what is, so the is our unknown, of 5. So 5 goes down here. And then we multiply. We cross-multiply to solve this proportion. And we get 100x is equal to 5 times 420. That looks like it's going to be, what, 2010? Oh, 2100. There we go. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then we divide on both sides by 100. This is a little bit easier. And we get x equals 21. So 420% of 5 would give you an answer of 21. Now if you want to use this other method right here, the percent as a decimal, so here we would have to turn this 420% into a decimal by moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. And this would be 4.2. Okay, so that would go here, and we would say 4.2 times of, which is 5, equals is, which we don't know. And so all we have to do is 4.2 times 5. And that should be 21. Okay? So that's 2 different ways to approach this. All right. If you're confident that this makes sense for you, this is the way I normally do them. If you are not as confident in moving that decimal point back and forth and doing problems that way, you can always fall back on that proportion. Okay. And it's important to identify these pieces of the problem. Like I said, when we get to the word problems, the is and the of kind of disappears from the language, and then it becomes a question of, oh, you may not be able to see that over there. This is the part frequently, and this is the whole. And so long as you understand the part is sometimes larger than the whole. Okay, let's look at a couple more problems here. And notice that because our percentage was over 100, our answer was bigger than what we started with, like that drawing that I had up there a few minutes ago. Let's see here. Let's look at, what do we want to look at here? Well, problem 4 has another percentage that's over 100%. So let me just do something, let me just make a problem up here. Let's see, what is 65% of, let's say 15, okay? So again, we've got a choice here. We can set it up like this, or we can set it up like this. We want to do it this way. What is? So the is our variable. That's what we're looking for. Of 15, so 15 is the of. Percentage is 65 over 100. And so then we just go 100x is equal to 15 times 65. 15 times 65, 975. Divide on both sides by 100. And so x is going to be 9.75. The other way to go about doing this is that percent as a decimal. Take that 65% and move that decimal point 2 places to the left. And so this is 0.65 times the of, which is 15, equals is. And so again, if you do 0.65 times 15, you should get an answer of 9.75. Okay? All right. Now let's look at finding, I believe it's of, in the next one. Yeah, problem 6. Let's do problem 8 first. Let's do problem 8 first. That one's not as tricky as problem 6. Problem 8 says 10 is 20% of what number? 20% of what number? All right, so let's identify the pieces. The is the 10. The percent is the 20. And the of is what we're looking for. So that would be a variable. The is 10. The percentage is 20. And so there's our proportion. And again, we're going to cross multiply. So 10 times 100 is 1,000 equal to 20x. And then we'll divide on both sides by 20. And again, if you just want to go 100 times 10 divided by 20, you can do that as well. Okay, and so here we get x equals 50. All right. And again, if you want to do it the other way, what would we do? The percentage as a decimal is going to be 0.2 or 0.20, however you want to go about it. The of is what we're looking for. And the is 10. And so here we're going to divide on both sides by 0.20 or 0.2, however you want to think of it. And we should get the same answer here, 50. 10 divided by 0.20 equals 50. All right, let's see here. Let's look at one more from this section. Yeah, we'll go back and do number 6, because number 6 is a little bit trickier. Number 6 says 120 is 0.2% of what number? Okay, so this is the same scenario that we had just a minute ago. The 120 is the x is the of, and here, even though the percentage is already a decimal, we're going to leave it that way and put it over 100. Okay? This is a very small percentage, all right? And you'll see that when we do the other method, we're going to move that decimal point and it's going to get even smaller. But we'll see that in a minute. All right, so here we do 120 times 100, and over here equals 0.2x. And so now we want to do, what is that? 12,000 divided by 0.2. And that comes out to be 60,000. All right. And now, if we do this the other way, let's see, our percent, if we want to make this a decimal, we've got to move it 2 places over and fill in that 0. So this is going to be 0.002 times x equals 120. And then we divide on both sides by 0.002. And if we do 120 divided by 0.002, we'll get the same exact thing, 60,000. All right, let's see here. Let's look at a couple from that next group. This is where we're looking to find the percentage. So, problem 10, what percent of 520 is 130? What percent of 520 is 130? Okay, so we're looking for the percent. That's going to be our variable in this problem. Is 130, of is 520. And so if we want to cross multiply, we do 130 times 100, and then 520 times x, and then divide on both sides by 520. All right, so 13,000 divided by 520 equals 25. All right. Now, frequently, this was what I was saying before about different methods for solving this. If you just do 130 divided by 520, that'll give you 0.25. And then if you change that into a percentage, it'll be 25%. So that's another way to approach this. If we use this method, I think we'll see that. So that percent as a decimal, that's what we're trying to find. We don't know what it is. The of was 520. The is was 130. So this says 520x equals 130. Divide on both sides by 520. And there it is. That's what I was talking about a minute ago. Is if you do 130 divided by 520, you'll get x equals 0.25, which is the percent as a decimal. And so now we need to turn this into a percentage, 25%. Okay. Let's look at number 12. And 75 is what percent of 225? 75 is what percent of 225? Question mark. Okay. So it's the same setup as that previous question. So that's what I was talking about at the beginning, how these are grouped, right? The first four are one kind of problem. The first four, you're looking for is. In the second four, you're looking for of. And now in this third group, we're looking for the percentage. Okay? So our percentage will be the variable, the unknown. 75 is, so we put the 75 on top of 225, that goes on the bottom, and then we cross multiply 75 times 100, and then divide by 225. And this one I think will be a repeating, let's see, 7,500 divided by 225, yeah. So this is 33 1/3. If you get comfortable with that, you can call it 33 1/3%. Okay? If you are scared of fractions or just don't like fractions, that's all right for now. You can just round it off and call it 33.33%. All right. So, do this the other way. We say x times 225 is equal to 75. And then we divide on both sides by 225. So, and if we divide 75 divided by 225, that should be 0.3 repeating. 75 divided by 225, right. 0.3 repeating. And if we just move that decimal point over 2 places, then there's our 33 1/3%. And actually, if you add the bar over the 3's, then it's not rounded off. It's exact. And so that's another thing you can do if you don't want to get mixed up with the fractions. If you've got a repeating decimal, just put a bar over the repeating part. All right, so that's page 1. Let's go and take a look at some of these problems on page 2. Now this is going to be where they're kind of mixed up, and you're going to have to decide which one of these are we trying to find. Let's see here. Problem 14 says, what is 35% of 8? Okay, so we're looking for the is part, right? Because we have the of, we have the percentage. The percentage is 35. The of is 80. It's the is that we're looking for. So this would be 100x equals 80 times 35. Let's see here. 2,800. And then divide on both sides by 100, and we get x equals 28. And if you want to approach this the other way, you would take this percentage and turn it into a decimal. 0.35 times of will give us our answer. And again, if we do 80 times 0.35, we'll just get that 28 straight off the bat. Okay, well that's good. Let's keep moving here. If these videos get too long, they become really difficult for me to manage to get off the camera onto the computer and upload it. So if I go a little quickly, I apologize, but I'm keeping an eye on exactly how long these videos end up being. And I know that you can back up. You can rewind it. If I go a little bit too quickly, please just back up and take a look at it again. And if you still have questions, please just let me know. All right, let's see here. Let's do problem 20. Problem 20 says 200 is 40% of what number? Okay, well let's see here. So, of what number? That says that we're looking for the of in this one, right? We've got the percentage here, 40 over 100. 200 is, and then we're looking for the of. So we're going to go 200 times 100 equals 40 times x. And then we'll just divide on both sides by 40. And let's see, what is that going to give us? I think 500. All right, if we wanted to do this the other way, let's see here.
200 is the is. We would need to take that 40% and turn it into a decimal, and we're looking for the of, right? So here's the decimal times the of, that's what we're looking to find, equals is. And so to solve this again, we're going to divide on both sides by 0.40, and that will also give us 500. I mean, if you look at these, you can see how similar they actually are. I mean, here we're doing 200 divided by 0.40. Here we're doing 20,000 divided by 40. Okay, those numbers are, and that will, you'll always see that relationship between these two methods. These two numbers are always going to be these two numbers multiplied by 100. Okay, and that has to do with this issue of that this 40 is actually 40 over 100. All right. Let's take a look at one more problem here. Let's see here. 22 looks like a good problem. This is the last kind. This is where we're looking for the percent. 22 says 6.2 is what percent of 24.8. Okay, so we're looking for the percent. So that's going to be our unknown. Is 6.2. Of is 24.8. So if we cross multiply, 6.2 times 100 would be 620. And this will be 24.8 times x. And then we'll divide on both sides by 24.8. So 620 divided by 24.8 gives us 25. So 25% over here. Let's see, we're looking for the percent, so that's our x. The of is 24.8. The is 6.2. So, divide on both sides by 24.8. And again, you can see here's 620 divided by 24.8. Here's 6.2 divided by 24.8. And so what do we get there? 6.2 divided by 24.8. And this will be 0.25. And then we need to convert this into a percentage, 25%. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, if this is not clear to you, please contact me, please let me know. You can email me, you can call me on the phone. We will be having Zoom conferences starting in week 2, and so that'll be another opportunity for you to clear up any misunderstandings. So until then, I wish you the best.